Well, for more on the crisis in Venezuela and May Day protests around the world, let's bring in Mariano De Alba. Mariano is a Venezuelan lawyer and an expert in international law. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, thank you so much.
So let's start with May Day in Venezuela. What should we take from how the protests for and against Maduro went, and what options are there now for Juan Guaido?
Well, I think that the option remains the same. Mr. Guaido is hoping for a larger break in the Venezuelan military. Yesterday we saw some very concrete signs of that military discontent, which will potentially increase because the Maduro government doesn't have the tools to respond to the dire crisis the country's in. So actually today's protest, they were important because they showed that despite of the events yesterday and the fact that Mr. Guaido was not did not gather sufficient military support to overthrow Maduro yesterday, there's still a lot of people who are willing to go to the streets and maintain that public discontent in the hope that in the coming weeks there will be enough military support to bring back democracy and economic prosperity to Venezuela.
Now, May Day didn't just highlight the ongoing political crisis, you also have the economic crisis, also these blackouts that are also going on. What is this doing for everyday life for Venezuelans?
Everyday life in Venezuela, it's very surreal in the sense that there is a process of hyperinflation, so even the salary you gain, it's worth nothing in a couple of days, so you have to really be quick buying your food and medicine that you need. Then there's a lot of personal insecurity, and obviously there's the political crisis, which is this feeling of unrest, of also repression and retaliation by the government. So that has been going for a while, and because of the decisions that the government has taken, it has shown that it doesn't have the tools, it doesn't have the capacity really to respond and to solve this situation and find again a path for stability in Venezuela. So with the Maduro government in place, the reality is that the situation is going to get worse, and that is why it's important that the discontent continues to be public and that the Venezuelan society organizes itself to try to fight for a return not only of democracy but also for economic prosperity.
And while some are choosing to stay and protest, others are leaving for neighboring countries. What is this doing in terms of regionally and the impact that it's having when you have these Venezuelan refugees now coming into these neighboring countries?
Well, for example, just today, the International Monetary Fund said that the impact for a country like Colombia, which is one of the ones who is receiving the largest number of Venezuelan, it's going to have an impact of at least 0.5% of its GDP annually. So I think that what that is doing to several countries is putting a huge financial strain, in the sense that countries that are not, especially Latin American countries, are not prepared to deal with this kind of large number of migrants and also refugees. And then obviously that's also causing a lot of xenophobia and in some cases also obviously a backlash from people of those countries who do not like to see so many foreigners taking their jobs or working and reducing their professional opportunities, or maybe cramming schools and so forth.
And you touch on this interesting theme about sort of these shifting dynamics in terms of the views of jobs. As you look at some of the major themes that you're seeing around the world during these May Day demonstrations, are there any common themes that keep cropping up?
Oh, I think one common theme is the people trying to get organized and trying to go to protest in the street, trying to exercise their rights. I think in some cases that has a violent ending, which is not desirable, because then the legitimacy of the protest actually decreases. So I think that the big challenge for workers around the world is try to carry out protests in an intelligent manner and try to avoid violence. And I think that will give them a legitimacy to actually advance in the exercise and defense of their rights.
Now, when May Day first started, it was during a period of industrialization. You had a lot of workers who needed protection, and then you had a lot of these big factories, these huge manufacturers, really not providing the right protection to those workers. How much have May Day protests changed over the years?
Oh, I think it has been largely the same, in the sense that it is still a day in which it is seen around the world, in which workers have to go to the street and have to keep advancing the fight for their rights. Maybe in some, it depends on the country, but in the end, I think that it is largely understood by now that the economic situation of a country has a very important impact. So workers are not only fighting to advance their rights, but they are also fighting in many cases and many countries with large or high numbers of unemployment, just to have an opportunity or to have a job and go and try to step up the ladder and try to gain a salary and simply find prosperity.
Certainly very important and applicable to everyone. Thank you so much for your insights, Mariano De Alba there, Venezuelan lawyer and expert in international law.